Okay, welcome back. So let's start off by adding a collision capsule. Now this capsule is going to be what will allow us to collide with things in world space and also allow us to move around in room scale. So I just set the half height to 88, which is the default. And since you can see it's sticking down beneath our camera location here, I'm going to offset it also the same. So it's now on top of here. So it looks like this. Now the way I did this was to use simulate physics on the collision capsule, and this may or may not be the best way of doing it, but this way it allows me to use the simulating physics behavior to get a nice collision with the world. So in order for this to work, I'm gonna have to set a few things on the collision presets. So for one, I need to change this overlap all dynamics to a custom, and I'm gonna use the pawn setting here, object type, and then I'm gonna ignore everything except blocking with world static, dynamic, and a physics body. The hands itself, they have a hand mesh here, or the controllers here, they have a hand mesh. And the way it's set up in the default project is that on the event tick, you will have some logic going off here, saying it will turn on and off collision, depending on if you're gripping or not. But the only thing is that the hand mesh here doesn't have a collision setup, so whenever we turn on collision, it will probably default to something like, I don't know, some, default collision channels. So I'm going to set that inside here. So I'm going to say this is collision enabled, and I'm going to treat this as a pawn. And then ignore everything except world static, dynamic, and physics body as well. So back inside our motion controller, where we set this up here. Actually, one thing I forgot is that I need to change this to collision enabled query and physics. Otherwise, this is not going to work. So once we hit play, I probably want to start this in VR preview, and probably also want to show this. We are going to see a collision capsule next to us, and this is what we need to align up with. So the next step here is to add a new custom event going off from the event tick here. Let's call this something like event tick update room scale position. So the way my setup works is that instead of moving the actor itself, I'm actually moving a capsule, which is then moving the actor. So in order to move the capsule here, I'm gonna, instead of setting a specific location, I'm gonna work with a delta movement. So set add world offset. And in order to have a delta movement, we need a variable to hold the current location. So the current location in room scale is something we can fetch from the HMD. Get world, get position and orientation, this one. And when we move in room scale, we don't care about what height we have to begin with, or at least not in the simple setup here. So I'm gonna split this up here and make a vector, and then just extract the x and the y, and that we need to feed into a new variable here called last room scale position, which we are going to set after we add this offset here. So the offset we're going to add is going to be the difference between this current position and the last position, like that. So this allows us now to move around, and maybe a little bit hard to see, but you can see when I move the HMD now around, the capsule follows us around. So in order to move around, get the movement applied also, we need to actually move the actor itself. And that is something we can do, or we should do, in a separate event here. Let's give this a name. Update actor position, and that is going to be getting the position from the capsule. And then we're going to set actor position based on what the capsule is. Now this has a little problem, as you will see. Maybe actually not possible to see yet, because I should call it like that. The problem is that now it's offset from ourselves. You can still see it's moving around, but it's offset from our HMD. So we need to correct it for that position here. And we do that by subtracting the same position here. Like this. So now it's on top of us again, but what you will notice is that now we are a bit too high up. It may not be well, it may be a little bit hard to see, but just take my word for it. So what we need to also adjust it for is the capsule half height. Like this. So now we have the movement, and it seems to be working. If I now teleport, I can see that the capsule is following us around. Well, almost. Something weird happened here. Apparently it's offset a little bit. The problem is that when we teleport, we actually teleport the actor itself, and we also set the actor location here. So these two things are kind of fighting for setting the position. So there's something we need to change, and if we want to use this same behavior here. So the last thing I'm going to do in this video is change that, and it happens up in the section here called handle teleportation. So I just took out the teleport here of the actor. So instead of teleporting the actor, we are actually going to move the capsule itself. We're going to drag in the capsule here. And we're going to replace this with set world location and rotation. Use teleport. Using teleport allows us to not have any change in physical velocity or angular velocity during movement, which is very handy. And also getting the teleport destination. Now all this stuff here takes into account that we have a position in room scale. So since we now overwrite this stuff here, we're gonna take this stuff out and implement it inside the pawn itself. So now this is happening inside the motion controller, this guy here. So now we just simplified this. So we're just getting the teleport cylinder world location. And that is what comes out here. And what we need to do now is to add in the capsule actually the capsule height, half height. And again, the reason I need to add this is because the location that we get is going to be on the ground. And as you can see, on the ground is here, but the center of the capsule is up here. So we need to add that onto in order to get the correct position. So now we can move around and we can teleport around. We can walk into things. What had just happened here was that the capsule tilted when I walked into something. And that is going to be something I want to tackle in the next video, because there's a few things still we need to handle in order for this to actually work. So for now, thank you for watching and see you in the next